Welcome to the 5 Deadly Sins of Strategy. My name is Adam Thomas, and I am here to help you both understand your strategy and then operationalize it so that you're able to get the things that you need to get done. Let's start with the truth. Most teams get strategy wrong, and they usually start with the definition of strategy. So let's define it. Strategy aligns a team to tackle significant problems cohesively. What does a good strategy look like? Well, I think it has a couple of components. One is strategy is focused on a problem. Clear help problems will help you prioritize what's important, not just to you, but to everyone that reads the strategy. Even better, when you're able to talk about what the problem is and then tell folks what you're ignoring, you even further help sharpen what's in front of you. Next, strategy is descriptive. The strategy that's in front of you should be something that helps people see and accept complexity. Describe your company, describe who you are, describe what you tackle, describe what you prioritize. Give folks who read the strategy an understanding of who you are so they can use it to operationalize and solve problems. And three, they help us learn. Generally, when strategies are good, they give us guidelines that help us understand what are we trying to learn, how do we learn it, and what does success look like. They also give us the opportunity to change direction when things go wrong. And so you aren't learning if there isn't a way to falsify what you're talking about. And so it's important that there is some learning driven decision making that's involved with that. Good strategy helps teams tackle complex challenges, gives teams room to grow, and is open to randomness. If your strategy understands the future, well, whatever you're doing, you're not getting paid enough. Why is that? Well, why does it have to have this openness? Well, strategies are not plans. In fact, Roger Martin, one of the writers to Playing to Win, a great strategy book, says that strategy is the opposite of planning. Strategy is the opposite of planning. Strategy is the opposite of planning. So why do we have strategy planning meetings? We're going to talk about executing strategy. And the truth is 90% of organizations fail to execute their strategies successfully. A fairly executed strategy, a strategy that's not being executed well, will lead you to this screen. This is the activity dashboard. And you can get to this by looking at any Google document. Within the menu, you'll find the activity dashboard. And the activity dashboard will tell you who's viewed it, what's the viewer trends, what the comments are, and how your document has been shared. If it looks like this, then you have a dead strategy. And I can be pretty sure that it's not being operationalized. Your strategy has hit the Google Drive graveyard. And as an effect, you're not getting what you want done. You're in the land of no strategy. And if you're in the land of no strategy, your team is reactive and really not able to learn. At least learn in a direction that cohesively helps you solve the problem. So when it comes to strategy execution, what are you responsible for? Well, leaders, you're responsible to create the environment where strategy can be executed. For individual contributors, you are responsible for helping to provide data that improves that execution, the execution of strategy. What stops that are the 5 deadly sins of strategy. And what we're going to talk about today is how do you overcome those 5 deadly sins? Let's start at the beginning. What are the 5 deadly sins? They are hiddenness, ambiguousness, untrustworthiness, selfishness, and staleness. If you're wondering, do we fall into any of these sins? Here's some quick questions you can ask yourself. when thinking about it. For hiddenness, does anybody know this strategy exists? For ambiguousness, who is this strategy for? Untrustworthiness, how can this strategy build trust in the work that we do? Selfishness, how does this strategy help us, not me? And staleness, when does this strategy change to fit reality? Today, if you're a leader, you'll learn some tactics that'll help you guide your team to cohesion. And if you're an individual contributor, you'll learn some questions you can ask your leader to help you level up and get strategy executed. To help us go down this path, we're going to use the Bobco product team. And now the product team has 5 portfolio product managers, each with a different sin. We're going to join them on their journeys to fix it. I hope you're ready. Let's start with hiddenness, which is the dilemma of invisible strategy. At Bobco, Jane and our leadership team designed a strategy to enhance AI data utilization, but failed to communicate its essence across the organization. As time progressed, Jane noticed a lack of engagement. Teams were merely following orders without understanding the broader strategic context. Now, how do you know that you're running into hiddenness? Well, teams don't know what the strategy is. You never hear anybody mention it. And in fact, they don't know where it is. So if you don't hear anybody questioning the strategy or asking about the strategy or even having a problem with the strategy, it's probably hidden. So the way to get in front of this, the way to absolve this sin, is to make the strategy available and to keep bringing it up in meetings regularly. If you're an IC, you can ask, how do our current projects directly support the company's strategic objectives? Could you direct me to the latest version of our strategy document? Considering our strategic goals, could you review and align our backlog or the work that we have going on accordingly? What are the priorities that I should focus on? So, to fix the sin of hiddenness, Jane implemented a strategy session in the weekly planning meetings. She got people to talk about the strategy regularly. The team actively engaged and inquired about their strategic direction. That got the wheels turning. And then Bobco standardized strategy accessibility, realizing that there needs to be a source of truth and folks need to be able to access those documents fairly easily. Ambiguity, the chaos of unclear strategy. At Bobco, despite a vibrant year to start with Larry's leadership, the team produced features that failed to connect to the big picture. They were scattered. Now, if that sounds familiar, I'm pretty sure that whenever you work on products, you realize that we don't really have a unifying vision. We don't really know who this is for. When someone asks you for an ideal customer profile, you don't know who that is because it keeps changing. And if that keeps changing, what you're building keeps changing. If that keeps changing, then there's no way that you can solve a complex problem cohesively. And so it's important that you understand who you are building this stuff for. When you have your strategy, ask yourself the 5 W's. Who, what, when, where, and why. And then tack that on to discussing your problem so folks can get a clear picture of who this is for. And then remind them often. If you're an IC, you can ask, what are the success metrics for this project based on those 5 W's? In what way does this initiative benefit our target consumer? Or you can say, I'd like to narrate our strategy to stakeholders using these key elements. And then you name the 5 W's. And then you ask yourself, you ask the leader that you're with, can you confirm the alignment with you? Does this make sense? So Larry started to use the 5 W's and he started using them often. Whenever he would describe the problem, the next slide would be the 5 W's. And then that translated into the team during their sprints asking themselves about the 5 W's when it related to epics and stories. And so Bobco evolved because when they saw that team being very focused on who this was for, they took it to other teams and it enhanced their strategic alignment. Untrustworthiness, the peril of secrecy. Hannah's department at Bobco was seen as the black hole of information, creating distrust and resistance among other departments who were crucial for collaborative success. How do you know? Well, anybody affected by the strategy, they start going around to confirm answers. They don't trust what you're saying. If you don't have any trust, then, well, teams grind to a halt. Uh, Paul J. Zach out of Claremont University did a study about trust and its efficacy with teams. And trust was 60% of a team's efficacy. So that means if you aren't working with trust, your team is working at 40% efficiency at best. So when I say everything grinds to a halt, that means everything grinds to a halt. Now, how do you absolve? How do you build trust? Well, two ways. You make a promise and you keep it. And you have a level of accountability. When you fail at that promise, you tell people that you failed and you tell them how you're going to fix it. Talk about your wins and your losses regularly and keep your word. If you're an IC and you feel like you're in an untrustworthy place, ask yourself who are the key team contacts in Team X for building strategic relationships? What steps should we take if a project fails? Is there a defined protocol for pivoting? I'm looking to increase collaboration with other teams by sharing more data. How do you do this? So Hannah started making her postmortems public, posting them in Slack and then discussing them during all hands meetings when it made sense. Our team also engaged in open discussions. They started leveraging things like retros more often. And then Bobco evolved by fostering this transparency and building interdepartmental trust because as other teams started being honest, the product started getting better. And of course, they started working faster. Selfishness, the shortcoming of siloed success. Scott's strategy at Bobco seemed effective, but it was focused on his own team and it alienated other departments. So, how do you know that you're falling under the selfishness? Well, notice if you use the term I a lot. There's no I in team, and there's also no I in strategy. Take the I's, turn them into we's. Because if a team sees no benefit for their own goal, then how are they supposed to give you more? How are they supposed to connect? And so take the opportunity to connect with other teams. Have a coffee meeting, engage with the other folks around you. And then you'll start to find ways in which you can push what you learn into your strategy and again turn that I into we. If you're an IC, ask how does the strategy enhance value across the organization? Has the impact of the strategy on every department been fully accessed or realized? Could I spend a day with Team X to better understand how our product impacts their work? Right? You're getting yourself into the field and you're getting to know the people around you. So Scott started to integrate other teams' incentives into the strategy. He started to mention how they connected, how their work connected to the other teams. Then the team took some more time to understand what those incentives are and started to tell that story along with their work. And so Bobco evolved by cultivating a culture of inclusivity and collaboration across those departments. Staleness, the risk of complacency. Alicia's team at Bobco enjoyed early success with their strategy, but failed to adapt to the dynamic market, resulting in a loss of competitive edge. So how do you know? Well, if your strategy hasn't been updated in quite some time, well, it's probably stale. And by quite some time, I mean at least in the last quarter or so. And as we're in June, you should have updated your strategy once or twice by now. That's a problem because strategy should be helping teams make decisions. And if the data is wrong or old or stale, people stop listening to it. And so you should have a regular strategy review Just take 30, 45 minutes, an hour with the proper stakeholders and say, hey, are we still going in the right direction? If you're an IC, you can ask, when's the last time we updated our strategy? Which recent market trends and performance metrics should we prioritize? What's happening out there and how should we focus on it? What methods can we employ to continuously integrate fresh insights into our strategic processes? Have them help you by saying, hey, this if this works, let's bring it in. So Alicia instituted a monthly strategy update session, and her team infused fresh data and feedback. Right, they helped Alicia be able to tell a story when she got in the room, and so Balco evolved and maintained a real competitive edge because they noticed the competition and the market shifts and adjusted for it. As we leave today, I want you to understand that strategy is dynamic. It is not a plan. And so feel free to ask these questions of your strategy as you create it and as you operationalize it. How effectively are we communicating the strategy across all levels of the organization? Can every team member articulate what benefits from the strategy, who benefits from the strategy, and how it supports our mission? What measures are we taking to ensure that this strategy is perceived as credible and aligns with our organizational values? Does this strategy promote collaboration and offer benefits across various departments? Or is it primarily focused on one area? What triggers processes do what triggers and processes do we have to adapt our strategy to evolving market conditions and insights? Strategy is alive. So we want good strategy so that we don't end up in this Google Drive graveyard. I want to thank you for joining me on this presentation. Looking for feedback. So if you are watching this now or later, feel free to use your phone, use that QR code, and fill out that sheet. It would be very helpful because it'll tell me what you got out of it. And if you have any questions, I'll be able to answer them generally within 24 hours. For those that joined me, I want to thank you, and I wish you a wonderful Wednesday.